Hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture what we're going to do is we're going to go in and configure our EC2 instance. We're going to go in there and we're going to install WordPress on there, and then what we're going to do is we're going to create a post, and in that post we're going to add two new images, and then what we're going to do is we're going to add some resiliency. So we're going to see where those images are saved on our EC2 instance, and we'll look at a way of backing that up to S3. I'm going to do it manually at first, but then we're going to use cron as well to do it automatically. Then we're going to put our EC2 instance behind an application load balancer, and then we're going to connect our application load balancer up to Route 53. So we're going to do an awful lot in this lesson, and this is a lab and you will need to log into the AWS console. Okay, so here I am in the AWS console. You might want to just check on CloudFront and RDS and make sure that it's been deployed. So you can see it's been deployed and enabled. Full disclosure, I did leave the office yesterday after recording the last lecture, so it has been over 12 hours. So you might want to leave yours for an hour while your environment gets up online. Likewise, if we have a look at RDS, we can see our database instances in here, and you can see that the status is available. So the next thing we need to do is go over to EC2, and what we're going to do is we're going to SSH into our EC2 instance. We're going to make sure Apache is installed, WordPress is installed, and that everything is up and running. So just grab the public IP address of your EC2 instance and go over to your terminal window. Okay, so here I am in my terminal window. I'm just going to SSH to EC2-user, and then then my public IP address, then a -i, and then the name of my key, which was my Irish key pair.pem. And I'm going to go ahead and connect into that host. And there we go, I've connected in. So I'm just going to elevate my privileges to root, and I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen. Then I'm going to go over to my var www.html directory. And we can see it in there. If you see your var www.html directory, it means Apache has been installed. And I type in ls and I can see all my different WordPress files. The other thing I might just want to check is whether or not my htaccess has been installed. You can do that just by typing cat and then htaccess and just hitting enter. And there we go, you can read that file. So let's go ahead and clear the screen. So one thing that Bootstrap script didn't have was starting the Apache service. And I will add that in so you won't have to do this. But I need to type in service httpd and then start. And that has now started the Apache service. And you can check that just by typing service httpd and then status. And then that will show you that it is now running. So again, I'm going to clear the screen, and the next thing we're going to do is go over to our web browser. So I'm in my web browser, I've put my IP address up here. Now that I've started the Apache service, if I just hit refresh, and there we go, we can see the WordPress installation screen. So we're going to go ahead and install WordPress. Let's go ahead and hit let's go. Database name, I'm just going to call it A Cloud Guru, and I'm going to copy and paste this into my clipboard. I'm going to use this as my default username and password. You probably want to do something more secure. It's totally up to you. Now in here, if I'm just going to enter the password in here we've got the database host, and this says localhost. Now you would have localhost if you are running MySQL on your EC2 instance, but we're not doing that. We're running MySQL on an RDS instance. So what we need is our RDS endpoint. And to get that, we just go over to AWS. Let's go down to RDS, which is under database. And then what we want to do is go into our RDS instance and then just go and grab the endpoint. So just click in there and you'll be able to get this endpoint. So copy that into your clipboard and then just go back over to your WordPress installation and paste it in. And there we go. And then what I'm going to do is go ahead and hit submit. Now, if yours hangs for whatever reason, it could be that you haven't opened up the security group on 3306. It'll actually hang when we hit this run this installation. Now, it says, sorry, but I can't write the wp-config.php file. So all you need to do is copy this into your clipboard, and then we're back over in our terminal window, and we need to create that file. So we just type in nano wp and then config and then .php, and then we're just going to paste it in here. And then that's all you need to do. Hit Control X and then yes, and then enter. And now we're back in our web browser. All we need to do is go ahead and hit run the installation. And like I said, if it hangs, that means that your security group is blocking your 3306, so your MySQL port. Make sure that you have done that, but it should be instantaneous if you have that port open. And so now we're ready to install WordPress. So it's already created our database inside RDS. All right, in here, I'm going to call my site Hello Cloud Gurus. My username is going to be A Cloud Guru. My password, I'm actually just going to do a Cloud Guru because it's easy. It's very weak. It's going to ask me to confirm the use of a weak password. Email, you may want to enter your email in there. I'm going to enter mine in, and then I'm going to hit the install button. And that has now installed. So there we go. WordPress has now installed. So let's go ahead and log in. And I was just ask you for the username and password, which is a Cloud Guru, then a Cloud Guru. I'm going to get it to remember me so I don't have to keep doing this. And we're going to go ahead and log in. So we've now logged into WordPress and we're ready to go and create our first post. So the first post could be Hello World. That's typically what it is there. So we're now ready to create our first post. So let's go ahead and hit Add New. And this will allow us to go into our WordPress and create a post. So here's our title. So I'm going to call this Hello Cloud Gurus. And in here, this is where we would write like our articles. So Hello Cloud Gurus, welcome to my awesome WordPress site. And then what we might want to do is go in and add some pictures. So you can click on this, add image. And then what we want to do is go in and upload an image. So just hit upload, and I'm going to upload my very first one, which is a picture of me and my son watching the Falcon Heavy take a Tesla to Mars. And this is pretty much one of the best days of my life. We're at Kennedy Space Center. That was the Falcon Heavy right there. So that was the largest rocket ship in terms of thrust since the Saturn V. It's actually, I think, double the Saturn V. And that took Elon Musk's original Tesla Roadster to Mars. It actually went past Mars and headed off towards the asteroid belt. So there's that photo there. Let's add just one more. So I'm going to show you this one. This is Starman. So this is a real picture. This isn't photoshopped or anything. This is Elon Musk's Tesla in orbit around the Earth. And there is Starman, which is like a mannequin. It's not a real person, before anyone worries. And so that was on February 6, 2018. I'll remember that day for the rest of my life. So I've got these two. We are now ready to go ahead and hit publish. And we're going to go ahead and hit publish again. And that has now been published. You can go in and click view post. You will be able to see that post in here. And let's just go over to our terminal window. So I'm back in my terminal window. If I type in ls, I can go over to my WP content directory. So cd WP content. Then in here, we'll be able to see our uploads directory. If we go over to our uploads directory, we can now see the current year. So if we go to the current year, so 2019, we can now see 02, so it's in February. If we go over here, we should be able to see our two images. So we've got the Falcon Heavy and the Tesla Earth. So these are now saved on our EC2 instance. They're up in the cloud, sitting on an EBS volume somewhere in a data center inside Ireland. And what we want to do is add a bit more resilience. So if we just go back to our cd var html directory, I'm just going to go ahead and clear the screen. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to make it so that every time somebody uploads a file to our WordPress site, that file is also stored in S3 for redundancy. And eventually what we're going to do is we're going to force CloudFront to serve those files using the CloudFront distribution rather than using the images on our EC2 instance, because then the site will load a bit faster. So the very first thing we want to do is make sure our S3 role is working. So just type AWS S3 LS. Hopefully you'll be able to see your S3 buckets. If you can't see your S3 buckets, make sure that the role is attached to your EC2 instance that gives you S3 access. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to copy across those files. So to do that, we're going to type AWS S3 and then copy. We're going to be doing this recursively, so type in recursive, and this just means to copy all the files and folders within this directory. And then we're going to do it from our var html, and then it's /wp content, then /uploads. And the S3 bucket that we're going to do this is our S3 bucket that serves as our CloudFront origin. So we're going to be using the one, I think I called it, there it is, a Cloud Guru WP, then -media, then -rjk19. So you choose your bucket, go ahead and hit enter. And that will then upload our files to our S3 bucket. So the next thing we want to do is add a bit of redundancy. We could lose this EC2 instance at any time. So what we want is a full copy of our website in our S3 bucket, a Cloud Guru WP code. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy the entire directory in there. That way, if we lose our EC2 instance, we can have an auto-scaling group with a bunch of EC2 instances that as soon as they boot, they pull down the code from the S3 bucket. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to use the same command, except we're just going to change it a little bit. So we're going to, instead of copying the uploads directory, we're going to copy the whole thing. So we're going to copy our var www.html directory, and then we're going to do the acloudguru WP, and instead of saying media, we're going to change this to code. So type in code in here, and then RJK19. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. We can see that is now copying those 1,000 files up to our S3 bucket, and that will be done in just a couple of seconds. And so now we have a full copy of our WordPress site in S3. Again, we can test that just by typing AWS S3 LS, and then the name is S3, and then acloudguru WP-code-RJK19, and by hitting enter. And then you can now see all our WordPress code is in there. If we type in ls, we could also see that we've got our healthy.html from the Bootstrap script. We can cat that, so we can type healthy.html and just make sure that we've got a file in there. So it just says healthy. So we can use our Elastic load balancers to do the health check off that file as well. Another file we need to take a note of is our htaccess file. So let's go in and see it. It is actually hidden. So we're going to go into htaccess. And in here, we've got what's called a URL rewrite rule. And this essentially allows our website to basically, instead of serving the images out of EC2, it's going to serve our images out of CloudFront. It's going to rewrite the URL for all our images. And that's what it's doing actually just over here, WP content/uploads, and then star, so wildcard. And so basically it's saying, hey, rewrite this URL to this new URL. And so this is the URL for our CloudFront distribution. So what you need to do is go ahead and edit this. So you want to go to the .NET and then just go delete out the current CloudFront distribution URL. And then what we want to do is paste in the new one. So let's go over to CloudFront. So I'm back in the AWS Management Console. We're going to go down to CloudFront, which is under Network and Content Delivery. You can get the domain name from in here, or what you can do is click on the ID and then go down and grab the domain name here. So I want you to highlight that and copy it into your clipboard, and then go back over to your terminal window. So back in our terminal window, I've just pasted that in there. If you just hit up, you'll be able to see the rule now. So that is now doing a URL rewrite to our CloudFront distribution. So what we now need to do is just go Control X and then just say yes to save, and then say enter. So now that we've done that, we want to make sure our S3 bucket is up to date, and we could copy the entire directory again, or we could use the sync command. I'm just going to clear the screen. I'm going to type AWS S3 LS so I can definitely get my bucket name right. And then all we're going to do is type AWS S3 and then sync. And what are we going to sync? Well, we're going to sync our var www HTML directory. And where are we going to sync that to? Well, we're going to do it to acloudguru, then hyphen, and then, it's acloudguru WP hyphen, and then it's code, and then hyphen RJK19. Go ahead and hit enter, and that should just sync the one file that has changed. So you can see here htaccess. So that S3 bucket is now up to date. So the next thing we want to do, so now that we've done our URL rewrites and we've synced up our HTTP access file to S3, it's still not going to work because we actually have to tell Apache that we're going to allow URL rewrites. So in order to do that, let's just clear the screen. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to our etc and then httpd. This is where Apache is installed. If we type in ls, we can see a configuration directory. Let's go over to that. And then if we type ls again, we can see our httpd.conf configuration file. Now, because we are going to make a change to this, it's always wise just to make a backup copy before we do it, just in case something goes wrong. So just call it httpd and then copy and then .conf. And that will just create a backup. So we've got a backup of it now. Next thing to do is just to go into nano, so httpd.conf. And what we're going to do is we're going to allow URL rewrite rules. Now there are 362 lines. You are going to have to scroll down a little bit. So this is what you're looking for. You just need to scroll down a little bit. It basically says allow override controls. What directives may be placed in the HT access? Right now it's saying none. We want to change this to all, and then that will mean that we are allowed URL rewrite. And a URL rewrite will just rewrite our URL to be using the CloudFront distribution instead of using our public IP address, then /WP content /uploads, etc. So I'm just going to save that, hit exit, and there we go, write that file. Now you don't technically need to do this. I just always get into the habit every time I change a configuration file, I restart the service. So I'm just going to type in service httpd and then restart. Totally optional. It should, when you change a configuration file in your EC2 instance, should take effect immediately, but sometimes I just like to force a change. So this is our bucket policy that we're going to use to make our website public or make the images public. So just copy that into your clipboard. And what we need to do is just go ahead and paste that in here. And we just need to update the ARN with this ARN. So make sure you've done that. So just type it in here and then go ahead and paste that in. Make sure it's 100% correct. And then go ahead and hit save. As soon as you've done that, what will happen is the UI will change and it will say that it's public. It'll make it very, very clear that this bucket is public. Now, if you are getting an error message, all I want you to do is just click on your bucket and go to Edit to Public Access Settings and make sure these are all unchecked, and then just go ahead and hit save. It will then ask you to type confirm into here. So I'm just going to type that in. And then go ahead and hit confirm. And then you can go back in here and go to your permissions and apply your bucket policy. So just click back in here, make sure you change the ARN, but you just have to make sure that you can make the bucket public. Once that's done, you're good to go. Now, the thing about CloudFront is it takes a while to propagate. So I'm back over in my WordPress. I wouldn't be surprised if this hasn't worked yet. So Hello Cloud Gurus is in here. If I click on the post, it's already propagated. Now, it might not be that quick for you. It might actually take an hour or two. Sometimes it can be that long. Sometimes it's just 10 minutes. It's up to you. If we go ahead and copy this image and paste it into our clipboard up here and hit enter, and you can see now that the URL rewrite is definitely working. So it's using our CloudFront URL to serve our images. It's not using our static IP address. So next thing we're going to go do is we're going to go over and create an application load balancer. And we're going to move our EC2 instance behind our application load balancer. Okay, so I'm back in the AWS Management Console. I'm going to go down to EC2. And we're going to go ahead and create an application load balancer. If you click on load balancers in here, hopefully you've deleted your load balancer from the last few lectures. If not, go ahead and delete it. I'm going to go ahead and create a load balancer. It's going to be an application load balancer. I'm going to call it my ALB WP for WordPress. It's going to be internet facing. We're just going to do HTTP. I'm going to do it across all 3 availability zones. I'm going to put this into my existing security group, so my web DMZ security group. In here, we're going to create a new target group. We're going to call this target group My WordPress Instances. And the target type is going to be an instance. We're just going to be using HTTP and port 80. Our health check is just healthy.html. And in here, advanced health check settings. So our healthy threshold, let's drop this down to 2 so you can see the minimum in here. In here, we're going to go for a unhealthy threshold of 3. Our timeout will just leave as 5 seconds. Our interval, let's do this as 5 seconds, and our success code as 200. Next, we're going to go and register our target. It always catches me out, this timeout and interval. So this has got to be, our health check timeout must be smaller than the interval. So we need to change this value to 6. Let's go ahead and hit next to register our targets. We're going to register this behind our application load balancer. Let's go ahead and hit review and go ahead and hit create. And that has now created our application load balancer. Now that is still provisioning. I'm just going to refresh it. I have been waiting for about 3 or 4 minutes and it is now active. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to Route 53. This is completely optional. It depends if you decided to register a domain name or not, but we're going to point our domain over to our Elastic load balancer. So let's go into our hosted zone. And then in here, we're going to create a record set. It is going to be the naked domain name, so hellocloudgurus2019.com. It is going to be an alias, and then we'll click in here and we can see our application load balancer in there. And I'm just going to leave everything as simple for now and go ahead and hit create. So that is now pointing hellocloudgurus2019.com to our application load balancer. Now, the thing about DNS is it always takes a while to propagate. So the last thing we need to do is we need to go over to EC2. We need to go to our target groups, and we actually need to place our EC2 instance into our target group. So if we actually have a look, I'll just make this a little bit bigger. Click on targets. Right now, you'll see there's no registered targets. I'm going to go ahead and hit edit. I'm going to click in here. I'm going to say add to registered, and I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and that will now add it to my registered targets. It's going to take a while for this status to change, and it's going to go through and run the health checks. So I'm just going to pause the video. Okay, so I'm just going to refresh the screen. Hopefully the status has changed from initial. Let's click on targets, and it is now healthy. So let's go over to our domain. So I've opened up a new tab. I'm going to paste it in here. And there we go, hellocloudgurus2019.com, and we can see my two pictures that are there. And again, if I go and copy the image address and paste that in there, it will go in and rewrite it to CloudFront. Now, if this doesn't work, don't worry about it. I just wanted to show you a practical example. Some people can tear their hair out at the URL rewrites. If it's not showing a picture, it doesn't matter. It's not going to come up in your exam. It just means that something has gone wrong somewhere along the way. But I would feel free to move on to the next lecture if it's still not working for you, because it's just such a minor thing anyway. So that's it for this lecture, everyone. In the next lecture, we're just going to go ahead and set up our AMI. We're then going to set up auto scaling, and then we're going to go through and start terminating instances and testing resilience. So if you've got the time, please join me in the next lecture. Thank you. Okay, hello Cloud Gurus, and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we're going